Hello, this is Blue Joe Saunders, WBO middleweight champion of the world. Subscribe to Sporting Icons to stay in touch with all the top news. God bless you all.
Right, so let's have a little bit of a continuation to my post-fight review video yesterday, where I said that John Ryder, in my opinion, he won that fight against Callum Smith 8 rounds to 4, maybe 7 to 5. And surprisingly, most people actually agreed with me on that one. So, yay me. Now, the thing is, of course, since then we see Callum Smith's trainer in Joe Gallagher. Then we see Callum Smith's very good friend in Tony Bellew. And these people, they're saying the same kind of things. And I understand what it is that they're talking about when they say, just because somebody performs a little bit better than what you think doesn't mean they get the victory. And I do understand that point, and that can be used for quite a few fights. That's for sure, for damn sure it can be. But that's not how it was last night. Callum Smith, yes, he didn't perform to the best of his ability. But a lot of that was down to John Ryder. Yes, John Ryder performed better than maybe most people thought he was going to. But did that mean that John Ryder shouldn't get the victory because he wasn't supposed to win? That's not how boxing is. At the end of the day, Callum Smith didn't perform to his best. John Ryder did. And therefore, John Ryder, he won more rounds than Callum Smith. For me, I can't pick out 7 rounds for Callum Smith where he won. I just can't. And that scorecard was at 117, 111. Whoever that judge is needs a good kick in the plums. That's ridiculous. Absolutely outrageous. Okay, now, listen, I didn't have a horse in the race, but there's a couple of reasons why potentially this happened. First of all, is there some kind of conspiracy from the judges towards matchroom gym fighters? I'm not talking about matchroom fighters. I'm talking about the matchroom fighters who fight or who train at the matchroom gym, such as John Ryder, such as Ted Cheeseman, such as Ricky Burns and that, because arguably those 3 all won their last fight, but not one of them got the decision. Is there some kind of conspiracy from the judges towards matchroom gym fighters? Do they not like Tony Sims? I don't know, but there's quite a few reasons as to potentially why John Ryder was not given the decision, because ultimately when you look at it for a commercial value, not that I believe the judges were paid off by Eddie Hearn, Matchroom or Sky Sports, not that at all, but when you look at it for like a big fight night perspective, who is it that you look at? I mean, if Callum Smith or John Ryder was to go over to Las Vegas and fight Canelo, which one of Callum Smith or John Ryder would you go, oh, they've got a pretty good chance of beating Canelo? As in John Ryder or Callum Smith at the top of their game. Most people will probably side with Callum Smith. Again, if John Ryder had got the decision and went over to Las Vegas to take on Canelo, I think a lot of people, and it's not being disrespectful to John Ryder because I'm a huge fan of his, but a lot of people, as I said, not including myself, but a lot of people would probably say this would be like a Canelo Rocky Fielding Part 2. That's how a lot of people would view it, but they wouldn't view it that way if it was Callum Smith. So that one, by awarding Callum Smith from that perspective, is making it a more interesting fight for a Canelo. Likewise, if, say, Triple G, he came over to the UK and went to Anfield, that would be another huge fight. And again, a lot of people, if Callum Smith was on his top form in that fight, a lot of people may actually pick Callum Smith to win that fight. But John Ryder at the top of his game, not many people would. Listen, for me, John Ryder could beat Canelo. John Ryder could beat Triple G. But most people wouldn't think that way. So from a commercial point of view, as far as big fight night boxing happens, Callum Smith is the one that you would want in there. Most people would want in there against a Canelo or a Golovkin, not John Ryder. And I think that's one of the reasons why the judges awarded Callum Smith the victory. I think that they were looking to give rounds to Callum Smith. That's what they were doing. So if Callum Smith landed a 1 or 2 good shots in that round, he was getting the round. In addition to the fact, yes, he's a home fighter. And of course, I'm hearing like Eddie Hearn, he's talking about it and we're saying, well, you know what, it's a close fight. I don't really agree with that one big scorecard. Listen, we know what it is that Eddie Hearn's doing. He knows full well that John Ryder should have got the decision in that fight. But he didn't want John Ryder to get the decision in that fight because, as I said before, John Ryder against Canelo, John Ryder against Golovkin isn't a huge fight. John Ryder against Billy Joe Saunders, we've already seen it once before. It just isn't going to sell. That's not John Ryder's fault. But Eddie Hearn isn't going to say that because he wants to be able to talk about how, well, Callum Smith, he could legitimately go over there and beat Canelo. Callum Smith, he could legitimately beat Golovkin at Anfield. Callum Smith, he's the pound for pound #1 super middleweight in the world. That's why he can't say, yeah, I think that Callum Smith lost that fight and he got gifted a victory, because then it taints his future promotion, doesn't it, with Callum Smith? In addition to the fact the crowd was very, very pro Callum Smith, very anti John Ryder. And it does seem to be that judges do go with the crowd. They do get intimidated. I've seen this firsthand when Ted Cheeseman took on Scott Fitzgerald. The crowd was very, very pro Scott Fitzgerald. But it was abundantly clear as I'm sat there ringside watching that fight as to who won that fight. And it was not Scott Fitzgerald, it was Ted Cheeseman. But the judges awarded it to Scott Fitzgerald because of the crowd. And because of the fact they all want to see Fitzgerald and Anthony Fowler again for the British title. But it's unfair that Ted Cheeseman should have to take a loss that he didn't deserve to lose. Much like it was with John Ryder. John Ryder won that fight. He won that fight. And I had no horse in that race whatsoever. It didn't bother me who won that fight whatsoever. Both of these guys were British. I'm supporting both of them. So whoever won that fight, congratulations. I'm not looking at it from a perspective of, oh, I really want to see Callum Smith take on Canelo, so therefore I really want Callum Smith to win. I wasn't thinking that. And Tony Bellew and Joe Gallagher, especially Tony Bellew, listen, he knows, okay, he ain't stupid. He knows boxing, okay. He's very, very good at predicting fights, isn't he? He's very, very good at breaking them down. He knows full well John Ryder won that fight, but he ain't going to say it because Callum Smith is his friend. They're both Scousers. That's how it is. That's how it works. And for Joe Gallagher to talk about how Callum Smith, he won 5 of the first 6 rounds, you have got to be off your head. There is no way that Callum Smith won the first 5 of the first 6 rounds. No way did these guys go up to 6 rounds with Callum Smith winning 5-1. Didn't happen. Did not happen. That was, what, 4-2 to John Ryder. I had it. I've been watching boxing long enough. Okay, so Tony Bellew, yes, he's being very, very biased about it. Very, very biased. Again, he's probably thinking of the bigger picture as well, of a Canelo and a Golovkin fight, or a Billy Joe Saunders. That's what he's thinking. He'd love to go to Anfield. I know he's not a Liverpool supporter, he's an Everton fan, but he'd love to go there, sit there and do some punditry work at Anfield Stadium, would he not? And as for Joe Gallagher, he's talking about, well, no, we shouldn't do a rematch. Why are people talking about a rematch? Well, fact is, because John Ryder deserves a rematch because he should have won the first fight. That's why. And Joe Gallagher, when he's mentioning to Eddie Hearn, oh, I just go get the Canelo fight. Yes, we know, Joe, why you want the Canelo fight. We know. Your lad, Liam, he took on Canelo. You want to get paid. Okay? Listen, I understand it. If I was in Joe Gallagher's position, I'd probably do the same thing. But for me, if I was Tony Sims, I'd feel very, very hard done by with the fact that all of his fighters are clearly winning their fights, but they're not getting the decisions. And I don't quite know why it's working out this way. So if I was Tony Sims, I'd be very, very aggrieved. Very aggrieved. And John Ryder, listen, I understood in his post-fight interview there, he was saying that he's sick of being the nearly man. Because at the end of the day, he should have got the decision. Yes, he's lost some fights in the past that maybe he shouldn't have lost. He let himself down in some of those fights. Maybe he was the wrong weight. Maybe he should have rematched Rocky Fielder in there. I mean, ultimately, John Ryder isn't going to get that shot at Callum Smith again. Will he fight for the vacant WBA title? If, of course, Canelo vacates it. Maybe. Maybe. So the WBA regular title. But will the WBA give it to him? I don't know, because now officially he has a loss. So they've probably got a few people ranked above him that they're probably going to give the WBA regular title shot to. So if Eddie Hearn can pull that off, great. But ultimately, I think that John Ryder, he deserved that victory. Yes, a lot of people were probably looking at that fight thinking, well, Callum Smith should win this one quite comfortably. John Ryder will probably have his moments, but ultimately it would be a Callum Smith win by stoppage or a dominant points win. And because that didn't happen, were people giving John Ryder more credit than maybe he deserved in that fight? I don't think so. I honestly believe that John Ryder won those rounds. I like Callum Smith. He's a smashing guy. And yes, he's a phenomenal fighter. But he didn't turn up last night. And if these guys had a rematch, again, you probably have to favour Callum Smith. Because I do feel that he had an off night last night. And John Ryder had a very good night. John Ryder was doing the things in that fight that Callum Smith should have avoided. Callum Smith should have kept him at the end of the jab, but he just wasn't. Anyway, listen, that's my thoughts on it all. Of course, you drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.